This was the last page that I did in my Lockdown Sketchbook, and I'm sharing it with you because it's very special to me. If you want to see a tour of my entire Lockdown Sketchbook, you can click on the above link. What it's depicting is one of the things that I found most positive about the lockdown experience. The effect of having some privacy, having no people around during lockdown for the pandas was very positive because for the first time ever, they mated. I've been hearing about overpopulation and habitat loss all of my life, but I started reading an article about Cores, Corridors, and Carnivores a few years back, and it made me realize that I didn't really understand the impact that the fragmentation that happens when humans live somewhere, anywhere that's not a city, how much that fragments the wild spaces that we have. If we zoom in on a map, even in an area that looks relatively rural, we'll think, well, the animals can go all over here, but you'll see that there's roads and there's usually some form of human habitation. It might be somebody's farm, it might be a business, but there's always people. Anytime you zoom in with the map. I know because I spent, I don't know, way too much time, maybe an hour kind of like scrolling through. I went, I think I started like in Mexico and like scrolled up to Washington, and I just couldn't find any areas that didn't have some sort of human impact. Now, this is the U.S., and there are other parts of the world that maybe have a little bit less impact, but I think it's pretty much the same everywhere. And I didn't really realize this until I spent that hour scrolling through the map. But the article that I was reading did open a concept to me, and that's corridors, and that's what I'm showing right here. If you Google it, if you Google wildlife corridors, something like this will come up, and you can see that this is being enacted all over the world, and it's a way to connect cores, which are protected wildlife spaces, to each other so that the animals can go back and forth between them. Wildlife corridors are an example of how creating ways for animals to basically avoid humans or be away from them in some way or another helps protect animals from the different things that humans are part of, not necessarily humans themselves, but like the fact that we drive these enormous cars, that we create smog, that we cut down their habitat. Humans, they can be annoying to the other animals, but most of the time, humans can be ignored by themselves as long as there aren't too many of them, or as long as they don't have huge buildings, roads, or vehicles that get in their way. I should mention that I don't subscribe to the notion that humans aren't part of nature, that we don't belong here, that the things that we make aren't natural. I think that making houses is totally natural. There are lots of animals that make dens, houses, complicated houses. Think about bees, ants, beavers. But I do think that there are a lot of humans. And if there were that many ants in the world as there are humans, okay, actually there are probably that many ants, but if they were as big as we are and took up as much space as we did, it would be problematic. Seeing how a little bit of privacy allowed these pandas to potentially procreate, I think sends a very powerful message of how we humans could be better serving the other animals around us. And if you want to keep watching, I'm going to be sharing some clips about what life became like for us once the lockdown had loosened. And if not, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.